What I'm hearing you say is that patriarchy continues irrespective of education or economic success.
Absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely. And that is the sad part of it is that, you know, our education system also teaches you
Mm,
that men are superior. If you look at our books,
mm,
our books will always say, okay, women will stay at home and they do not work,
mm,
they do housework, as if housework is not work, right? And men go out and work because they are earning.
mm,
So from the very beginning, you're also teaching the children, or even a maths book will say a man takes 3 hours to do a piece of work.
mm,
The same work is done by a woman in 5 hours. The
mm.
moment you get a sum like that, your mind is going to think women are not capable, right? So they teach you. So education also reinforces all the patriarchal stereotypes that we see
Wow.
played out in life.
Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you are new to our channel, please consider subscribing to it and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished lady from Calcutta, Anuradha Kapoor. Anuradha, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Anuradha is the founder and director of Swayam, which is committed to advancing women's rights and ending gender inequality. She's an Ashoka Fellow, an Eisenhower Fellow. She's an activist, a trainer, and a consultant. So, Anuradha, let's talk about Swayam. Tell me about the work you do here.
So Swayam is a feminist organization that I set up 26 years ago, and the focus is really to end violence against women,
Mm-hmm.
gender inequality, violence against women, because at that time I found that there was a lot of silence around violence, and women didn't know where to go and what to do when they were in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to volunteer with some organizations working with women, and then I realized that there was a big need. So I set the organization up, and so since the time it was set up till now, we basically, sort of work in two ways. One is to support survivors of violence by providing them with a whole range of services like counseling, legal support, helping them find jobs, vocational training, anything that can help them move out of a situation of violence
Mm-hmm.
and lead a life of dignity and free from violence, right? And on the other hand, is also very important that it's not just a question of helping somebody who's in trouble, but also preventing the trouble from happening in the first place. So how do you prevent violence?
Mm-hmm.
How do you prevent gender inequality? So we have another entire set of activities that are focused upon creating awareness about violence against women, gender inequality, and also activating people to take action to stop it. So change in their own lives, change in the lives of the communities in which they live, change in the society that they live in. So it's really a kind, through awareness generation, through campaigns, through research, through advocacy, and also, to change the climate around which women are also living. So, laws and policies that support women's rights. So advocacy around those areas, working with other organizations. So it's a holistic way of looking at ending gender inequality and violence against
Very
women.
interesting. And I'm assuming that when you say violence, you're talking about domestic violence predominantly, or is it violence in general?
No, it's violence in general. We work with all forms of violence. So it's sexual abuse, domestic violence, sexual harassment at the workplace,
Okay.
violence in the public spaces, any form of violence we deal with. Child sexual abuse also sometimes comes to us, although our focus is women, but when we get cases of child sexual abuse, we're dealing with those as well. So it's a holistic kind of a look at violence. Yeah.
Wonderful. And rather since the time you started over 2 decades ago, what have been some of the key challenges you have faced, and what have been some of your key learnings?
You know, this challenge word is a bit of a
Okay,
problem for me
we'll,
because
we'll take whatever work you.
I always look at the challenges as something that needs to be overcome, right?
Okay.
So one sort of deals with it in that way. So if I had to really look at challenges in that way, I wouldn't say. Uh, I just look at them as stepping stones to the next space that I need
Mhm.
to go to.
So,
But I think there are two things that I would like to highlight here.
Mhm.
One is, it's an uphill task to change people's attitudes. We live in a patriarchal society where women are considered to be the weaker sex.
Mhm.
They are given very few opportunities, and the thinking that women are valued less. We know that when a child is born, if it's a male, then
Mhm.
there's a lot of excitement. When it's a female, it's not so. And I mean, it's the case with a large majority of our population. It's
Mhm.
not to say that there are not other people who think differently, but it's a majority of our population, and that patriarchy runs through every institution in our society, whether it is the family, or whether it's school education system, whether it's the media, whether it's the legal system, any system that you look at, all of them, religion, all of them undermine women in some way or the other, and they also reinforce the stereotypes. So
Mhm.
I think that is the biggest challenge. How do you change the thinking, a mindset that has been there for thousands of years,
Mhm.
in the short span that you are in this world, in
Correct.
a sense? So that, I think, is one big challenge.
Correct.
And so if a woman has to go to a court, she will be faced with a judge who will have that patriarchal attitude to say, doesn't matter what you're facing, go and live with the man.
Mhm.
Or that, what did you do? If you go to a police station, the police officer will say, what did you do
Mhm.
that this happened to you? So it's always a woman being blamed. So these attitudes are really problematic.
Mhm.
And secondly, which stems a little bit from this also, is you know you we fought a lot for good laws. All
Correct.
right, so we have great laws for women, but the problem is with the implementation,
Mhm.
because the people who are sitting and implementing these laws have patriarchal attitudes. So when the law actually gets implemented,
Mhm.
then women are being faced with these issues. At the same time, to implement a law, you need a lot of money,
Correct.
because a law, for example, of like the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, says that women should have access to services, and the services include counseling, shelter homes, a wide range of services,
Mhm.
legal support. But if you don't provide these services by putting money into these services, then the law is not really going to get implemented. So I
Mhm.
think that is the other area. And lastly, I mean, I think the reason why this doesn't happen is also the lack of value of women. And so there's no money in women's work. So if you really look at it, that even if you look at the Ministry of Women and Child,
Mhm.
okay, it's one of the most underfunded ministries.
Mhm.
Okay, their budgets are really low compared to other ministries. And the second thing is that I think 96% of the budget is for children. It's women and child.
Mhm.
So the women in that is literally 4%.
Wow.
And in that 96, women are considered when they are mothers,
Mhm.
when they're lactating, when they're pregnant.
Mhm.
So usefulness of women when they are producers of children, but as women themselves, there is only a 4% odd budget. So I think that is another big challenge that we are facing.
That's amazing. And tell me then, where does this money come from? Civil society, government, CSR activities? What can be done to correct this?
See, this is a state thing, right? The government has to put the money in, because, see, organizations like ours can only be supportive. The kind of length and breadth of this problem and depth of this problem can only be sorted out by the government of India, right? It needs state intervention with support from all of us. So
Okay.
it's like, you have a scheme that the government of India runs, say,
Hmm.
for example, the midday meal scheme. They are able to reach out to billions, millions of people. We will never be able to do that, and nobody could have that kind of money. So the government of India has to put in the structure, and then all of us can be supportive towards it.
Hmm.
And the money really needs to come from them.
From the government. Very interesting. And this is quite a shock to me that out of the ministry, only 4% is kept for women and 96% is for the
No,
children.
it's called women and child, and
Yeah, I know.
they'll tell you that it's for women, but it's women when they're lactating. The 96 includes pregnant women, lactating women, women when they have little children.
Hmm.
So only then, otherwise not.
So again, now let's come back to Swayam. And you've been doing such great work. I was reading about you. For our viewers and listeners, can you give me one or two interesting anecdotes of where you've actually made a big difference?
I think the core, the DNA of our organization is this work which we do with survivors,
Okay,
right?
with
See,
survivors.
with survivors,
Okay.
with survivors of violence. So
Mhm.
we don't call them victims because we feel that every woman who comes through the door
Mhm.
has taken an active step to prevent violence. So
Mhm.
she's not a victim, she's a survivor. She survived that violence, right? So with the, I think that the change that we see in their lives,
Mhm.
that is the biggest achievement for us. And in a sense that it's also a big learning for the organization, because every woman that we work with teaches us what is right with the system, what is wrong with the system, and what needs to be changed,
Mhm.
right? So that, and it also teaches us, how we should change our services to support them better and so on. So I think that one of the biggest achievements I would say for Swayam is that the number of women who've been coming to us
Mhm.
has been increasing over the years. We also work with the children of the women who come in, as well as their natal families.
Mhm.
So it is the work that we do with them and the change that we see in women's lives that is really the mover and shaker of the organization.
Yeah.
So, for example, I mean, you will have a woman who will come in who has faced severe forms of violence, and it's not just emotional, but it's all forms: emotional, sexual, physical, all forms of violence. And then they have no idea what to do, and they have no support from the family.
Mhm.
Most families want women to go back to situations of violence, but when that woman comes through the door and then she gets a little bit of support, a little bit of help from the organization
Mhm.
in terms of just saying what's happening to you is wrong,
Mhm.
it's a crime. I mean, violence against women is a crime, right? So to say that what they are doing is against the law and that you can change your life if you want to, and we will be there with you. And then you see that woman actually changing from somebody, for example, a case that I had dealt with, and I always talk about her because she was one of my earliest,
Mhm.
the women who came to Swayam, and I dealt with her directly. And she came in sitting down just crying.
Mhm.
She couldn't talk. Her father told us about, what had happened to her. In a year's time, she had been physically abused and she was pregnant. Her husband kicked her in the stomach, and the child was aborted. And she, from that girl who could not talk,
Mhm.
today has become an agent of change, because she has not only overcome the problem in her life, she fought a legal battle, then she started becoming economically independent. Today she runs a little tailoring business, and she also is part of our theater group, and she goes out into the public and she performs theater which is around issues of women's rights.
Wow.
And she picks up a mic and she will talk to people and give what we call in Bengali boktitas, which is talks.
Mhm.
And she's moved from that girl who was quiet to this woman who is completely in charge and is now changing other women's lives. I
Mhm.
think that is what is the most,
What an
from
amazing,
our organization, um, you know the success, I
amazing.
would say.
And tell me, this violence and inequality, is this across cross sections of society from the rich to the poor, or is it more urban? Is it more rural?
Actually, it's across the board.
Hmm.
Okay, I mean, I always say a rickshaw puller's wife will come to us,
Hmm.
and an ITC's director's wife will come to us. I mean,
Hmm.
I shouldn't say
No, no, I
ITC,
know.
but any. What I mean
Any
to
large
say is
company.
that a large corporate house, IT companies, bankers. So it's across lawyers, judges, business people. So it's across the board. Like, you will get people, domestic workers and taxi drivers' wives and other people, but you will also get this other lot of people. There is a difference. The difference is that as you move up the ladder, the silence is more,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of social stigma attached, so women don't want to speak out. So they will come and they will ask for information but not necessarily want to be associated with the organization, because they just want that little bit of help and they want to move away because there's a lot at stake. So I think that it's just how the kind of services that they take from Swayam. The poorer you are, you will take more services, and I think the more you go up the ladder, you will take a certain set of services, but not all. You don't really want to be seen there. So I think it's something that most people think it's a poor people's problem, but actually it isn't. Just yesterday, yeah, I had a phone call from a woman whose husband is in the IT sector, very high up in one of the big IT companies. And she's been married for the last 15 years, herself an MBA, but her husband has been abusive throughout. So it's like,
Yes.
the nature of the violence is, and also I think the way the violence is perpetrated on the upper women from higher classes is also more sophisticated.
Amazing. What I'm hearing you say is that patriarchy continues irrespective of education or economic success.
Absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely. And that is the sad part of it, is that, you know our education system also teaches you
Mm.
that men are superior. If you look at our books,
Mm.
our books will always say, okay, women will stay at home and they do not work,
Mm.
they do housework, as if housework is not work, right? And men go out and work because they are earning.
Mm.
So from the very beginning, you're also teaching the children, or even a maths book will say a man takes 3 hours to do a piece of work.
Mm.
The same work is done by a woman in 5 hours. The moment you get a sum like that, your mind is going to think women are not capable, right? So they teach you. So education also reinforces all the patriarchal stereotypes that we see
Wow.
played out in life. If you look at media, you
Mm.
will find washing machines will be sold by women. Women will say, okay, fine, this is how you do the washing.
Mm.
So everything to do with household stuff. So you're reinforcing the fact that this is the woman's domain. This
Mm.
is what she's supposed to do,
Mm.
and you show men in very powerful positions. So it's really doesn't matter, because the education that we're getting from everything
Mm.
is reinforcing those stereotypes.
Amazing. And tell me, what is the role religion plays in making these beliefs, more deeply entrenched?
Look, there's no religion in the world that is equal. I mean, that shows women in an equal capacity, not one. All religions also are
I thought
patriarchal
in
religions.
Hinduism and in Bengal,
Hmm.
women are such powerful deities.
No, they are deities, but that does not mean that our religion does not discriminate. You have Manusmriti, right? What does Manusmriti say? You
Mm.
can beat a cow and a woman, both, right? They are both worthy of being beaten.
Mm.
So the idea of women being lesser
Mm.
exists in all religions, including Hinduism. And
Yeah.
the fact with Hinduism is also that, on the one hand, you elevate women to the status of deities,
Mm.
and on the other hand, you treat them the way you do. So there is no connection between what you are showing as a deity and how you are actually treating women in your real life.
Mm.
So there's a disconnect here. So it does, no religion will, if you any religion, I don't see, and every one of them will have certain things that women can or not do. So
Mm.
for example, in Hinduism, till very recently, after women started putting their foot down, you couldn't do the last rites of your parents. Only the boys could do it,
Yeah.
right? Even today in Sabrimala, they are fighting that women will not go into temples. So it shows you very clearly that every religion works
I,
against women.
I agree with you. So I've got one more question for you on relating to Swayam, and then I'll move to the next segment. Rather, this is the age of the millennials and the Gen Zs. And I do believe that, they're like a breath of fresh air across not just India, but the whole world, where they'll change all the mess that people of my generation have created. What is your experience of millennials and Gen Zs in the challenges, or let's avoid word challenges, in the work that you are doing?
See, I see that the younger, so obviously, younger women are riding on the shoulders of hundreds of years of work done by other women, so that they are now able to take that mantle and move ahead. And I see a lot of very positive um, initiatives that are being taken by younger women, and who are questioning, the stereotype, the patriarchal norms, and challenging those.
Mhm.
So, for example, I mean, there are across the country, I can see organizations like Pinjra Tod, for example, who started out with, fighting for equality in campus life, right? There are organizations for example, in Bangalore, who are working for um, access to street life, like basically women being on the streets and safe. So
Mm.
safety for women. So there are a lot of initiatives that young people are taking, young women are taking, and I think they're also using social media a lot more. I mean, I see that this is a new trend where
Correct.
social media is being employed in a very dynamic way to bring up these issues. And I think that that's, as you said, like younger generations are much more online. So I think that there are also a lot of very interesting initiatives that are happening. And I feel young people really are hope. I mean, one of the things that really gives me a lot of energy is when I work with young students in colleges or in schools. The response that you get from them fuels you to carry on because you see so much negativity all around.
Correct.
But when you work with younger people and you see that they're taking these initiatives and they're actually moving ahead. And here I'd like to also mention that, we're working with young men and boys. To try and change patriarchal thinking even amongst them and to show them how patriarchy actually dehumanizes men as well. It is negative impact for men as well. And so that is also very interesting to see that young men and boys are also taking up this challenge and trying to change things around. So I have a lot of hope in the future generation.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. So, Anuradha, I'm now going to move to the next segment of our conversation, which is some questions for you personally. My first question to you is that, you built such an amazing organization. You're giving back so much to so many women and men. What are some of the core values you believe in at Swayam?
See, I think the biggest thing is commitment to what you do. And I think that is a basic value from which we don't deviate. So we are committed to this particular issue and we work on this issue. And I think the other thing that I personally very much believe in, and that is something that is in the DNA, is if you're doing something, you got to do it well or you don't do it at all. So quality is really important. I think that is that when you give services or where you're doing a program, whatever it is, it has to be of excellent quality. So I think that is one thing, is do it well, that we really believe in. And then, things like transparency, honesty. And I think one of the other very important values is involving your, I don't like the word, your stakeholders, like the people you're working with, whether it is community women, whether it is survivors, involving all of them in deciding what you need to do to move ahead. So, each year when we're planning what we're going to do the next year, it is involving your stakeholders, asking them what is required, and then working in that manner so that the organization actually fulfills the needs of the people it is serving.
Amazing. So I have time for two more questions for you. And I'm going to ask you one question on, continuing with the work that you're doing and your values. Who or what inspires you to keep doing the work that you're doing?
I think I've already mentioned this. The women, the survivors that we work with, who show us that, no matter how bad the situation is, you can turn your life around if you want to, with the little support that you get. And that is really so motivating to see. So then when you look at your own life, you're like, you count your blessings every day. So I think that is something that really gives us all a lot of hope and a lot of, what can I say? I mean, the sense of achievement that we feel for the achievement that the women have made. It's
Fantastic.
that really is something. And the other thing is, of course, young people also who are, who give you the energy to carry on, because there is so much negativity around, and they bring that positivity to it.
I agree with you. So my last question to you now, Anuradha, which is a question on failure. And I've often said this, and I had just published a new book on failure. Parents in South Asia, and that includes me, don't teach children it's okay to fail. We are always told come first in class, go to the head of the line, etc., and that manifests itself in our behavior patterns. My question to you is, what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes?
I think that failures are our biggest teachers.
Correct.
Right? And I've learned from every mistake that I've made, and I've learned that I've become stronger. I've become more independent and self-dependent. I've learned what not to do next time, right? I've learned on how I can do things better. So I think that, a failure is also something I feel it's like, it's a milestone in your life that teaches you how to do the next milestone better. It's that thing that teaches you how you can, because without those failures you will never be able to reach the heights that you can if you have had a failure, because that failure really pushes you to the next level, is what I feel.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Anuradha, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure speaking to you. I mean, I think I have learned so many new things about everything that you're doing at Swayam. Thank you for giving back so much.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. All the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for listening to the brand called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.